All right, let's jump straight into this explainer and explore the really fascinating journey from breaking free of everyday financial stress to actively building long-term wealth. Look, if you're tuning in, you probably already know that true financial independence isn't just about bagging a higher salary. It's about fundamentally rewiring how you interact with the money you already have. So today, we're going to unpack the core concepts from our source materials that separate the people who are constantly stressing about money from the people who are quietly building absolute fortunes.
Wait a minute. Are you working for your money, or is your money working for you? I know. It sounds like a totally cliche riddle, but it actually perfectly sets up the fundamental difference between being a laborer and being an investor. When you work for your money, your income is strictly tied to your time and your physical energy. And let's face it, both of those are finite resources, right? You're inevitably going to hit a ceiling. But when your money works for you, it doesn't sleep, it doesn't take vacations, it never gets burned out. Our source material points out that crossing the bridge from that first state to the second is the exact moment you actually start building wealth.
Here's our roadmap for today. We'll be covering 1. The psychology of your spending. 2. Rethinking your savings margin. 3. The compound interest engine. 4. Index funds versus individual stocks. And 5. Making your money work.
Okay, section 1, the psychology of your spending.
Before we can even talk about building wealth, we absolutely have to look at the mindset behind our daily financial choices. It's a question we've all probably asked ourselves while painfully staring at a credit card statement. Why on earth do we spend more when we're stressed? Our source material dives into this deeply. When you're burned out from a long workday or just anxious about life in general, your brain actively seeks out a quick hit of dopamine. That immediate gratification of buying something new, whether it's some expensive takeout or a shiny new gadget online, temporarily overrides your financial anxiety. It is a massive emotional trap. We spend to relieve stress, but that spending reduces our financial security, which ironically just creates way more stress in the long run. But it's not just internal stress driving us. It's the external comparison. It's the social pressure. We are constantly seeking comfort through consumption because we're consciously, or even subconsciously, trying to match peer lifestyles. And in the age of social media, the Joneses aren't just your next-door neighbors anymore. They are perfectly curated influencers and friends from high school posting pictures of their luxury vacations. The trap of comparison tricks our brains into thinking that if we aren't spending at their level, we are somehow falling behind. Which brings us to the ultimate villain of our story. $5. Yep, $5. Seems completely harmless, right? It's just a premium coffee, it's some minor app subscription you forgot to cancel, it's a random impulse buy at the checkout line. When we're stressed out and feeling that social pressure, $5 feels like absolutely nothing. It's a completely justifiable, tiny little reward just to get through the day. But we really have to reframe our thinking here. Instead of seeing just $5 today as a harmless comfort, we need to recognize the massive opportunity cost. The source material heavily emphasizes the real cost of those small daily choices. Opportunity cost is basically the invisible price tag of what that $5 could have become if you had kept it and put it to work. We aren't just losing a $5 bill. We are literally robbing our future selves. If you took that $5 daily habit and invested it at a historically average 8% market return over 30 years, it wouldn't just add up to a few extra bucks. It would compound into well over $200,000. No joke. That small daily comfort is costing you a staggering future fortune. Moving right along to section 2, rethinking your saving margin. Society is constantly telling us to live within our means, but there is a massive, game-changing difference between living within your means and living below your means. Look at it this way. If you make $5,000 a month and you spend exactly $5,000 a month, yeah, you're technically living within your means. You aren't going into debt, but your margin is zero. You are incredibly vulnerable to literally any emergency. However, living below your means, say spending $4,000 when you make $5,000, creates a $1,000 surplus. That surplus is your wealth gap, and that gap is the only fuel that can drive your financial engine. Without the gap, you can never ever transition from being a laborer to being an investor. All right, section 3, the compound interest engine. Okay, so now that we've created our wealth gap, we're officially in the solution phase. We need to understand the mathematical magic that turns those small margins into immense fortunes. Compound interest is the mechanism where the interest earned on your money begins to earn interest itself over time. Think of it like a snowball rolling down a snow-covered hill. At first, you're just packing a small handful of snow together. That's your saved $5. As it rolls, it picks up a little more snow. That's the simple interest. But soon, the new snow it picked up is also picking up snow. The surface area gets exponentially larger. By the time it reaches the bottom of the hill, it's a massive boulder. Your money is now generating its own money, entirely independent of your labor. Over the decades, linear savings, that flat baseline of just hiding cash under a mattress, only grows by the exact amount of your physical labor. It's a strict 1-to-1 ratio of effort to reward. But compound growth, it is explosive. Now, early on, the two paths look almost identical. And honestly, this is exactly where most people get discouraged, lose their patience, and go right back to stress spending. But if you just wait, the math takes over. The compound trajectory curves sharply upward as your interest starts earning its own interest, completely detaching your wealth from the hours you work. The longer you let it run, the more vertical that growth becomes. Which brings us to Section 4, Index Funds vs. Individual Stocks. So when we compare our actual investment options, the contrast is pretty stark. The risk level of picking individual stocks is incredibly high because you're betting everything on a single company's success. Plus, the required effort is massive. You've got to read earnings reports, watch the news, and try to perfectly time the market. In fact, research shows that nearly 90% of actively managed funds fail to beat the broader market over a 15-year period. It is a serious uphill battle. But an index fund? It's just a basket of hundreds of the top companies. The risk is completely spread out. The required effort is basically zero. You just set it to auto-invest and walk away. And historically, the broad market has been incredibly reliable over long periods. As the old saying goes, don't try to find the needle, just buy the haystack. Index funds are the ultimate passive vehicle for your compounding snowball. Finally, Section 5, making your money work. If you do not understand compound interest, you do not understand wealth. Wow, that is a profound thought from our source material. True wealth requires a fundamental shift in mechanical understanding, not just harder physical work. If you don't grasp how compounding works, you're always going to be trapped trading your time for dollars. You will always be a victim of inflation, and you'll always be susceptible to the psychology of stress spending simply because you won't see the massive potential of your saved money. Understanding this math is literally the skeleton key to financial freedom. So let's recap the clear, structured path we've uncovered today. Step 1. Master your spending psychology. Recognize exactly when stress and social comparison are tricking you into giving up your future wealth for a quick dopamine hit. Step 2, live below your means. Create that wealth gap, even if it's super small at first. Step 3, invest that margin in index funds. Use a historically reliable, low-effort vehicle to carry your money. And step 4, let compounding take over. Have patience, step back, and let that mathematical snowball roll down the hill for decades. This is exactly how you transition from being an active earner stressed out by external pressures to a passive investor experiencing real, unshakable financial freedom. So, knowing everything we just explored about explosive compounding and the massive opportunity cost of impulse buys, what is your just $5 habit really costing your future self? I want you to seriously think about that the next time you're standing in line, feeling a bit stressed out, and reaching for your wallet. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and remember, keep letting your money work for you.